First of all, Melbourne is the most livable city in the world, or so the research tells us. Most years, certainly in the last 10-15 years, we've been voted the most livable city in the globe, which is pretty peculiar, unique and rather cool. Melbourne is a large city, we're a growing city. We have 4.1 million people and growing by about 90,000 a year. So in the next 20 years or so we'll be the largest city in Australia. We are livable, we are secular. Around 70% of Melburnians believe in a God, but most don't know who he is and they're not concerned to know about him. Christianity is by and large irrelevant to mainstream culture here in Melbourne. We're successful, we make a lot of money, we're educated, we have so much on offer in this city that the people in general are not concerned to know God. So we're very secular, we are successful. Just about everything that one would want to see and have in a city, Melbourne has. We have most of the major sporting events in Australia, that they are here in this city. We're the cultural capital of Australia, the fashion capital, the food capital. We're a very successful city. We're also a rather arrogant city. We have this inflated view of ourselves, kind of like a teenager who thinks very much of themselves. Melbourne sees itself as an important global city. We deserve a place on the world stage, and sometimes undeservedly so. We're a little full of ourselves. About 1,900 churches here in Melbourne. Half of them are Protestant churches. That makes about 8% of our population attending church regularly. 4% of the population are attending a Protestant church, and about maybe 1.5% are attending a church that we might describe as evangelical. So very small numbers, and the research is suggesting that over the next couple of decades that is going to decrease dramatically. So that is rather concerning, and that reflects a culture that is increasingly secular and disinterested in Christianity. But there's heaps of opportunities, and there are heaps of exciting things happening as well. We have an increasing number of young guys who are reading books written by Tim Keller and Don Carson and Piper, and they're interested in Reformed theology. They're opening their Bibles, they're thinking theologically. That's exciting. People hearing that word church planting and they're wondering what is that about, and they're considering that again, that is exciting. And there are churches being planted now in Melbourne, and again, that's a huge opportunity. So we thank God for the little things that we see happening, but we pray that it's just the beginning of a greater movement of seeing churches planted and the gospel growing in Melbourne. Yeah, we have a number of challenges here for churches in Melbourne. For example, the blindness of unbelievers. Paul says in 2 Corinthians that people are blind to the glory of God in the face of Christ. These folk need to hear the gospel. Another challenge is the apathy of Christians. Again, Melbourne is so comfortable, we are so affluent, we are comfortable, Christians are comfortable, and we don't see the urgency of people hearing the gospel and needing to hear what Christ has done. And a third struggle or challenge we have here in Melbourne is tribalism. Tribalism is rampant. The evangelical population is very small here in Melbourne, and yet historically evangelicals don't work together. We have our little groups, our little clubs, we do our own thing, but rarely do we work together to see the gospel growing in this amazing city. It's like being on a football team. And rather than the players working together to play the same game for the same purpose, we're playing against each other. And so tribalism is a significant issue for us